We're gonna take a look at PBD's interview with Netanyahu and see what the talks is about. Because there was a lot of talks on the internet how he was, I guess, asking lowball questions or some shit. I don't know. Or they were telling him, talking about how he's like paid off AIPAC asset or some shit. I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Once they make a phone call to America, America better do or else. Do you agree with that?
Do you know President Trump? You don't make him do anything. He does what he thinks is in America's interest, and he's very forceful about it.
Would the war and the Hamas attack have happened if President Trump was president instead of Biden?
Probably not, but it's hard to say with these maniacs. I think Iran would have been more careful.
I'm curious, did you know the president was going to be saying this?
We're going to take over that piece, and we're going to develop it, create thousands and thousands of jobs.
I'll bet you don't know this, Patrick. If America wants to come in and invest, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
So you would be okay if America takes over Gaza and it becomes something that we control. You'd be okay with that?
Yeah, but it's an American choice. Our victory will be your victory.
Oh, that's interesting.
Why haven't you yet recognized the Armenian, Assyrian, and Greek genocide
we don't want
that the
that
Turkish did?
We are not doing
that.
that.
Step foot in their country, they're supposed to
We
arrest
are not
you.
gonna.
Calling you a
I know that is a question, but honestly, I don't think Trump should do that. You're spreading yourself thin out there.
So I'll have to
I mean, it's good to have like I mean, you already have military bases in some of these areas
have the guts to say it out loud.
where you're already making
I don't know if it's come from the prime minister.
diplomatic ties with them,
Yeah, I just did.
right? Making sure
Very
you
good.
can
All
do
right.
such a
Well,
thing.
thank you
right?
for doing that.
We're obviously paying for that piece of land for those bases to be right.
Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm supposed I could take sweet victory. I know this life meant for me.
Adam, what's your point? The future looks bright.
My handshake is better than anything I ever signed. It's right here.
You are a one-of-one?
We're going to speed this up a little bit through his intro.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Good to be with you, Patrick.
So I have a very simple, open-ended question for you. Why are you doing this podcast tour?
Well, number one, because I heard that you invited me. Number two, because I think it's a way to puncture the lies and the vilifications that are leveled at Israel. And I think that's part of the, we have a seven-front war with Iran and its proxies, but this is the eighth front, the battle for truth. So that's why I'm doing it.
It's interesting when you say that, because when we look at a couple of numbers, if we think about the Pew Research that came out a couple months ago on the unfavorability rate of Israel, they have you 24 out of 5. If I look at the number, Rob, I don't know if you have it to pull it up. If you look at the numbers, you would see the 24-country medium is 62 to 29 being favorable. Why do you think so many countries are unfavorable of Israel today?
I think it's a combination of historical trends, but also of the impact of social media, especially engineered social media with paid bots, and this new media environment.
Well, I mean, it's not even just that, but there are some people who obviously don't want nothing to do with the war.
Really take their toll. So we're aware of that. But I think the
there
most
is some
important thing is
anti-Israel sentiment.
for
Don't get
democracies
me
to
wrong.
fight wars, they should be as short as possible.
Just look at
my
Hassan's
way of,
group of people.
combating the PR war
They're all
is by
fucking
winning the ground war
anti-Israel
and winning it quickly. The
and
quicker you
anti-America
win it,
too.
The better you'll come out of this this assault.
So why do you think this is taking so long? Because if you think of a part of it, when you think about especially in America, there's 3 different types of people on social media right now or in America that follow you. One, they fully believe you're committing a genocide right now. They're part of the community that's thinking they compare you to some dictators, some terrible leaders in the past, many names you've heard of before. Some of them are blindly supportive of what you're doing, but there's the other community that's almost a little bit burned out, that's wanting this story to end. Obviously, it's tragic. We're seeing what's going on. We're seeing all the stories, but why do you think this is taking longer than it's taking?
Well, I don't think it's taken longer than it's taking. Look at what we had to fight. We were attacked viciously by the most savage attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. That's by Hamas on October 7th. I said on the second day of the war when Hezbollah joined the fray, I said we're going to change the face of the Middle East because it was clear to me, and it may be clear to you too, that we're fighting the Iran axis. Iran, without Iran, I would say that all the axes, all the proxies collapse. Hezbollah collapses, Hamas collapses, Assad collapses, and so on. So it was clear to me that we had to topple the Iran axis and not just deal with Hamas. And what happened following that was that we went in, Hamas is in its last breath. We haven't finished it yet, but we crippled Hamas. Then we went and finished off Hezbollah, took out Nasrallah. That led to the collapse of the Assad regime, whose armaments we destroyed. The Syrian army's armaments. We dealt with the Houthis, still dealing with them. And then we had Iran itself that had struck us, and we had to
he's
strike
hitting up
back.
all
And
the
as you see,
fucking
we changed the
all
face
the
of the Middle
people.
East. Not only because we hobbled the proxies, but because Iran, which was a totally
went into
invincible
Lebanon,
enemy,
hit
throwing its weight
Hezbollah.
around not only in the Middle East,
I hit
spreading
Hamas.
terror everywhere, and
Hit
trying to
fucking
arm itself with
Houthis.
nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles to deliver them. We struck them very hard. So when you fight these four fronts, and there are another three, by the way, that I haven't mentioned, when you're doing that, a small country, it takes time. But I think we're approaching the final leg, and that's really finishing off Hamas. We can't have those monsters at spitting distance from Tel Aviv and our communities, and we're going to finish it.
Yeah, so when you say that for a person that lived in Iran, I look at the critics and they're giving, hey, let me tell you, it's not fair what he's doing with this. And you see ICC, which the average person, when they see ICC, 124 countries, that if you step foot in their country, they're supposed to arrest you, okay? And they're calling you a wartime criminal, the offenses you've done, the amount of, again, like I said earlier, they're calling it a genocide. How do you answer to the critics that they don't follow politics,
Court.
they don't follow the stories
It's
closely?
basically the.
But if they see, if they see 120 something countries that if you land there, they're supposed to arrest you,
United
the average person's going to say,
stuff.
maybe this isn't a good guy.
Yeah, well, they said that about Churchill too. He was a warmonger when he was talking about the German Axis and the danger to the West. He said he warned of the slumber of democracies. And I guess if I learned one thing from our history, the history of the Jewish people, is that you can't sleep. When somebody says they're out to annihilate you, you better take it seriously and act to prevent it. And that's the central lesson that we learned in the rebirth of the Jewish state and the Jewish people in Israel. We don't wait to be annihilated. We take forceful action against our would-be annihilators. And I think that people see it after you do it. After you do it, after you realize your vision, then people say, well, yeah, we begin to understand it. But they don't before, and that's certainly true of the case here. In the United Nations, you have 180 countries, 190 countries, and a great majority would tell you that the earth is flat. It doesn't make it flat. And the vilifications against Israel is a country committing genocide and other war crimes. That doesn't make it true either. Let me tell you, did you ask me about the ICC prosecution just now? Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you about that. So we were going to have this ICC prosecutor who's since been basically put to pasture. This ICC prosecutor was going to come to Israel in the beginning of the war. And he said, well, Israel has, it has a proper judicial system, and I don't see any real problem there. And he was about to come. And a day before he's about to come, he suddenly cancels the trip. And 2 days later, he issues this war crimes charge against me and the former defense minister. And we didn't understand, why did he do it? It took us months to discover that a few days before that, he was confronted by one of his staff members, a senior staff members, who brought the charges of rape and sexual misconduct that this prosecutor carried out against one of his staff members, a woman, a Malaysian woman, by the way, who was fiercely anti-Israel. But she had suffered this harassment and these rapes for over a year. Khan believed that this was his ruin. His brother, who's a British parliamentarian, was in jail for sexual misconduct too. So he said, that's it, that's the end of me. And then he figured out that there's one way to get out of this, and that is to deflect the entire conversation, to preempt it by blaming the Jews and blaming the prime minister of the Jewish state. And that's essentially what he did. Since then, you should know that there have been 4 or 5 other women who charged him with sexual misconduct. So what you have here is the ICC, which is a corrupt organization, totally politicized, unelected.
Well, yeah, they're
that
fucking
wants to,
politicized.
basically preempt
Don't fucking do
the
their
sovereignty
job.
of nations. And that's why the United States is not a member. They won't tell the United States
Remember
that its
that
soldiers are
one,
committing war crimes because
that one
some
ju-
woke people in The Hague are telling
It
you
wasn't an ICC
This
person,
ICC, this
or
corrupt
was it? It
ICC
was like a UN
prosecutor,
person. They had.
thought that he would
They brought
escape,
over a. They
escape justice
enslaved basically
by,
someone
basically by condemning
from
us.
like
And that's what he's
one of
done.
the
And I think a lot
African
of countries
nations
are waking
or
up to that.
countries.
It's sort of embarrassing
Like, what
when
the
your chief
fuck?
prosecutor is,
It was like Uganda.
doing such a
They
corrupt
came from
and heinous
Uganda or
thing.
something. I forgot.
But that's the ICC. I mean, President Trump has put sanctions on him. He's put sanctions on the judges who did this. I think he's just facing it. That's what I like about him. He just cuts to the chase.
It was like their
This is a
maid that
corrupt
they
organization.
they made that person their
prosecutor, corrupt
maid.
judges, and reminds me of that movie. You remember
So weird.
Network? I think.
Yes.
It said, we're not going to take it anymore. And it's not just Israel, because if they target Israel and they say to a democracy defending itself against these savages, you can't defend yourself, then no democracy is safe, and America isn't safe. So I think that's come out. There is extraordinary vilification, extraordinary lies leveled at Israel, and they're meant to prevent us from exercising our legitimate right of self-defense. They won't succeed.
So if we talk about the legitimate right for you to defend
I mean,
yourself,
yeah,
you'll-
just
you'll-
look at
you'll see
Canada.
the numbers. I'm a business guy. I'll see
You basically don't have
how
right to
this war has
self-defense
cost
in
you roughly
Canada.
120 to 130 billion dollars. Whether it's Hamas, Gaza, Iran, roughly 120 to 130 billion dollars. Reports that we read. Your debt to GDP ratio went from 60% to 75%. So some of the Americans, they're sitting there saying, yeah, we give you guys roughly 3.8 billion. For the war, America's given roughly $30 billion, which most of it was in weapons. But if you're going from 60 to 75%, how much longer can your economy or even the state be able to afford the war?
Patrick, I'm going to have some good news for you.
Please.
I led as first as finance minister and then as prime minister, a free market revolution in Israel. And Israel became a wealthy country because we unleashed the genius in our population and innovators and just incredible capacity to produce products and services that service all mankind in medicine and communications. That cell phone that you're probably holding half of it is probably made in Israel. And the cherry tomatoes that you eat, they were made in Israel and so on. And medicines that you use, made in Israel. So Israel became a powerhouse, a juggernaut of innovation and enterprise. And it strengthened our economy. We went from $17,000 per capita to about $60,000 in a very short time. It's a tremendous success story. Now, here's the truth. This is something I just saw, a slide. I wish I had it here. Too bad. But the slide shows investments in R&D that a country receives from foreign sources. So number one is the United States, like huge. Number two, in absolute terms, now as we speak, today, is Israel, tiny Israel. The next country is Germany. It's 2/3 of Israel, and the rest of the Western countries fall further and further behind. So our economy is actually doing quite well, I should say, and it's amazing. And you're right to ask it. But there was an economic miracle in Israel, which I'm very proud to have led. And we just have this resilient capacity, both in our economy, but also in our fighting spirit. We've gone through the Holocaust, and I'm committed, as are my people, to prevent a second Holocaust that Iran was planning. And that's what we've been doing in this war. It's taken this long because we had to break this noose of death that Iran was going to put on us in their plans to conquer the Middle East, in their plans to then proceed to Europe, and in their plans to then proceed to America. They say death to America. We're just standing in their way. And boy, did we stand in their way.
So I guess the question to kind of move on from this one, do you see yourself, if you're saying the war is not going on for too long, if this thing takes a couple more years, do you see yourself getting to a point that you're going to need to the American taxpayers and need more money and support, or are you able to sustain the expenditure that you have right now?
Yeah, I think we've organized that, and we're perfectly able to do that. I want you to know one other thing. I think Israel is different from your other allies. We spend an inordinate amount of our GDP, inordinate amount, to defend ourselves. I think one of your senators said something very true. He said, if we had in Israel, next to in Afghanistan, or if we had another Israel there, we wouldn't have spent $1 trillion or trillions of dollars. Israel is receiving and is very grateful for the American military assistance at about $3.8 billion a year, and 80% of it is spent in the United States. That's the deal. So it helps American industries. But we also produce these incredible weapons that we share with the United States. We produce intel that is invaluable for the United States. You're familiar with the Five Eyes, Patrick? You know what that is? You know all these countries that are part of the American intelligence system? Well, there's a sixth eye, Israel. It's a very powerful eye, and we share our intel with the American intelligence services. And
basically,
that's why
like
the bond is so strong. It's not only a bond of values of our common Judeo-Christian
or whatever,
civilization.
fucking Britain
And
intelligence.
it is really a war of civilization against the barbarians that we're fighting. But it's
each country has
a bond of utility.
Each country has a
intelligence that partnership is
company
very strong. I know it's challenged all the
framework
time,
that they use
but it's
to
very,
gather
very strong.
information.
You should talk to some of the people in the higher places in the Pentagon. I wish you could talk to the people who share our intelligence or the weapon systems that we share. I think that you'll discover that they appreciate, as we appreciate enormously what America gives to us, and they appreciate what Israel gives to America. Somebody said to me, you're the one fighting ally we have. You don't ask us to put boots on the ground. You don't ask us to fight your wars, although President Trump did a great thing by joining in that precise strike that he did. Didn't just start World War III. It didn't bring thousands of American troops on the ground in Iran, but it did. It was a magnificent addition to our brave soldiers. So I have to tell you, I think it's a partnership that is going to go on for a long, long time. As far as I'm concerned, for all time.
Prime Minister, what do you say to the critics who say, Israel owns America, Israel is who makes America do things they want it to do, whether it's through AIPAC, whether it's through, funding, money. You'll typically hear this. This has been overly said the last couple of years in a major way.
AIPAC question.
And there's a community of Americans that at this point believe that whatever Israel wants, they make a phone call to America. America better do or else. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not. I think it's full of hokum. First of all, do you know President Trump?
Hokum.
Sort of. I've known him for many years.
Sure.
Okay. You don't make him do anything. He does what he thinks is in America's interests, and he's very forceful about it. When he sees allies who don't step up to the plate, he's not shy about saying it. And we have a different relationship altogether. It's not one of coercion or manipulation. It's one of common interests and common values. And I think that people understand that because Israel is different. It really is. We know that we have to fight for ourselves, and we do. But when we fight for ourselves, we fight for you too. Because we fight Iran. Iran tried to murder President Trump not once, but twice. Iran killed and wounded thousands of Americans with their IEDs, explosive devices, in Iraq and Afghanistan. Iran killed 241 Marines in Beirut. They bomb your embassies. They burn American flags. They have mobs chanting, death to America, death to America. So when we fight Iran, we're not just fighting our war, we're fighting your war. But we are fighting that war here in the Middle East. And let me tell you what would happen. And as someone who had been in the Middle East as a child, I think you can appreciate this.
I mean, yes, they would be coming
we
after us, but
Iran.
they're coming after
It's
you
our
guys
Arab
first
neighbors
because
too.
you're the closest
They
target.
know that Iran wants to conquer them, pillage their oil fields, take over the Middle East, the maritime routes that control world trade. So they know that. But if you look at who's actually fighting Iran, it's Israel. It's Israel, our brave soldiers, our incredibly brave soldiers. And this tiny country, President Trump asked me, how do you guys do this? I mean, you're such a small country, we're the size of New Jersey. bigger than Rhode Island, but that's it. We're slightly smaller than New Jersey, and we take on this enormous empire with all its proxies, this anti-American empire that threatens to kill the president and chance death to America. How do you do this? And I said, well, you know, you're like an enormous lion, almost like a prehistoric saber-toothed tiger. You're enormous. We're not, but we are, you know, we're the, you know, the badger, you know, this little animal.
Absolutely.
Badger. And you see a badger being, you know, some tiger or lioness is trying to kill it, and it sort of turns
honey
around.
badger.
It has very sharp teeth and knows how to go to the
like
weakness
predators,
points, you know, to the points of vulnerability of the enemy. And you see these things.
Those things are
you know,
mean
I watch
little
NGO
shits.
Wild when my wife lets me, because she likes to watch cooking shows. Okay, so late at night, after we have this argument, we settle on some compromise, and on Nat Geo Wild, I see these films of this badger, this tiny creature, it's about this big, taking on a lion, and the lion runs away. So Israel is the badger of the international scene. It has the fortitude, the will
guys.
to fight our enemies because of our history, because for so long,
These guys had
we didn't
the
have a
super
state, we
tough
didn't have an
skin.
army, we didn't have the ability to defend ourselves.
Even
which
when they
culminated
take
in
on poisonous,
this crescendo
they take on
massacres that
poisonous
culminated in the
fucking
worst massacre of them all, the
insects
Holocaust, in
and
which a third of our
predator,
people were
animals.
annihilated. We have that in our bones, in our hearts, in our soul, and we fight. And that's a very, I think President Trump would like to see more Israels around the globe, because, you know, everybody who says, you know, America first, I can respect that, but I don't think they want America alone. And if you can have allies that actually share your values and fight for them in various parts of the world, and especially in the Middle East with Iran trying to take over the world, I think that's a valuable addition. So, you know, it'll take time for this to sink in, but it will sink in.
Yeah, you know, the topic of America first, it's become a little bit more clear where people are being put in different groups, America first and America only, and that debate's going on right now, which is a great debate. I actually like listening to both sides make their argument. Well, you said, do you think President Trump is the type of a man that you can get anything you want and make him do what he wants? I don't think President Trump is. But I do think Biden and others are. So the whole criticism of the fact that Israel, whatever they want, they can call America and have favors being done, I would agree with you on Trump, but with Biden. So maybe a question that I don't think has been asked yet. Putin was asked 2 weeks ago if the war between Ukraine and Russia would have happened under Trump. He said, no, it wouldn't have happened. So for you, would the war and the Hamas attack have happened if President Trump was president instead of Biden?
I don't know. It's a good question, but you said something about Biden that I should just point out the facts. In fact, President Biden supported us in the beginning of the war after this horrific massacre, and he came here, and I very much appreciate it. But as the war progressed and the vilifications of Israel, the distortions on the media began to pile on, you know, he began to take a different course. And when we were just 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way in Gaza, I said we have to go into that last position that they had, where they had organized battalions. It's in a city called Rafah, in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. And he said, don't go there. And he said, if you do go there, I'll smack an embargo on you. Now, you know, you're fighting a seven-front war.
Embargo or sanction.
And all of a sudden you're slapped with an embargo of weapons. That was tough. And I said to President Biden, who I've known for many years, I respect the fact you're the president of the United States, but I'm the prime minister of the one and only Jewish state. And we've been fighting to survive in our small place under the sun. It's been a battle that has been going on for 3,500 years. So I'll have to do what we have to do. And then a few days later, Tony Blinken, who was the Secretary of State, came to Israel, and he said, you know, the president is serious about this embargo. And I said, Tony, I know it's serious because you stopped all the weapons. You slow walked them before, but now you've stopped them. And then I said to him this. He said, well, how are you going to do it then? I said, Tony, we'll fight with our fingernails if we have to, but we're not going to leave. It's like the Allies would leave a quarter of the German battalions in place and not go into Berlin. And I said, would you take that? Would you take that, Patrick? Of course you wouldn't. So we didn't take it either. We did it against the opposition of the American president. So much for Israel controlling the United States. We don't. But we do seek to control our destiny. And when somebody commits a crime like they did on October 7th, decapitating our men, raping our women and then murdering them, burning children alive in front of their parents, taking 255 hostages, grandmothers with their grandchildren, this horror, and pledged to do it again and again and again. Well, what choice do we have? We have to fight them and their Iranian patrons, and we did just that. We did that first with American help, then with American opposition, and when President Trump came in, with great American help, which I truly appreciate. And I think President Trump does what he thinks is good for America. I don't think that. I know that for a fact. He's a great leader.
So going back to that, I want to clarify this again. So you said you don't know whether Hamas October 7 attack would have happened under Trump. So you're saying Hamas would have had the audacity, even under Trump, to have attacked, or no, they would have feared him?
Probably not, but it's hard to say with these maniacs. You can't quite tell. I think Iran would have been more careful, and Iran is the patron. Would they have controlled completely their client, their proxy?
So basically, he's saying Iran was funding basically Hamas, in a sense.
Maybe not. Maybe they would have, possibly. But look, I think President Trump has changed.
I mean,
posture of
there were
America's
talks
back
about
in the
how
global
they were
scene.
getting
America's
so many
is resumed
so many
its, powerful
weapons
position
and
among the nations.
funding
And I think
to
that's
just
for the
kept
good. Because I think one of the
doing what they were
tragedies
doing,
for
right?
the Jewish people was that in the
They also
first
made
half of the
those
20th
tunnels
century,
and shit,
America
too.
was not the dominant global power. And the worst tragedy in the history of mankind, the World War II, took place, and I don't think it was accidental. And the worst tragedy in the history of my people, the Holocaust, took place. But in the second half of the 20th century, America emerged as the dominant power on the earth, and Israel came into being. And as a result, our history has changed. We no longer are massacred with impunity. We now have the ability to defend ourselves, and we are very fortunate to have an ally, a strong ally, the United States, with successive presidents. We've had our differences, as I said, but overall, there's been a very strong alliance through all presidents. But it's never been stronger. It's never been so intimate and so powerful as it is now under President Trump.
You've been prime minister while President Clinton was in the White House, Biden, Obama, and Trump twice. Is there an element of unpredictability with President Trump that you don't know necessarily what he's going to be saying next? Or do you notice a pattern of, similar approaches that they all take?
Well, look, I think President Trump has an enormous capability. He's irreverent to received wisdom, to traditional thinking. He says, well, let's look at it again, and sometimes he can surprise you. I'll tell you, I had conversations with him when he cuts to the chase on something, and he says something that no one before said. A lot of people felt in their gut, but they didn't have the guts to say it out loud, and he does. And I find that very refreshing. And also, I think that unpredictability is not a bad thing to have. Not a bad thing to have with your sometimes with your allies, and certainly with your enemies.
I want to show you this clip. This is a clip of you and the president. You guys are standing right next to each other, and you give a look that you almost didn't know he was going to say this. And this is just personally for myself.
It just seems
I'm
like
curious,
a normal.
did you know the president was going to be saying this? Go ahead and play the clip on.
Conversation.
As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that.
Oh yeah,
We're
here's
gonna
this part.
take over that piece, and we're going to develop it, create thousands and thousands of jobs, and it'll be something that the entire Middle East can be very proud of. But everybody feels that continuing the same process that's gone on forever, over and over again, and then it starts, and then the killing starts, and all of the other problems start, and you end up in the same place, and we don't want to see that happen. So by the United States, with its stability and strength, owning it, especially the strength that we're developing and developed over the last fairly short period of time, I would say really since the election, I think we'll be a keeper of something that is very, very strong, very powerful, and very, very good for the area, not just for Israel, for the entire Middle East. Very important. And we'll, again, have thousands of jobs.
Can you pause it? You gave a look where you weren't expecting the president to say that, as if it's going to be our land. Were you surprised by what the president said here?
No, actually, I wasn't. But I can tell you that he said something else there. He said, and that surprised the world. And I thought, again, he cut to the chase. He said, why are Gazans locked in this area, which is just used as a base for attack against Israel for its destruction? That's what the de facto Palestinian state in Gaza was. It was a base for Israel's destruction. It has no other purpose. And it lived under this horrible tyranny, this terror tyranny of Hamas. So he said, why not give people a choice? I mean, in other war theaters, in Ukraine or in Syria or in Afghanistan, millions left if they wanted to. In Gaza, they're locked in. Nobody allows them to leave. And he says, give them a choice. If they want to leave, let them leave. And for those who stay, rebuild Gaza. I thought that was actually a very sensible thing. And it's not our goal now to depopulate Gaza and all these other nonsenses that people say. Our goal is to free Gaza, free it from Hamas, free it from Hamas tyranny and terror. And we now have Gazans. I'll bet you don't know this, Patrick. We now have Gazans fighting Hamas. And they say, thank God you're here. They didn't dare do that until the final stages of this war, which we're in now, because they know that they won't be slaughtered. So they actually fight Hamas. They fight these monsters. They call them monsters.
I mean, there's already been instances of Palestinians,
Gaza can have a different future. Israel and Gaza can have a different future. And as far as I'm
going
concerned,
against
America wants to
the
come in and
Hamas
invest,
people,
that's a good
but
thing.
at
It's
the
not a
same
bad
time,
So
some
you
of
would
those
be okay
people
if America
got
takes over Gaza and it
because,
becomes
well,
something that we
Hamas
control.
is
You'd be okay
pieces
with
of
that.
shit, right?
Yeah, but it's an American choice, and I don't want to get into that.
But no,
So-
you would be okay with that. So even if America chooses,
I'd be
Yeah.
okay with any governance.
It's
that,
a very
civilian
interesting
governance in
situation,
Gaza
yes?
that doesn't
As
teach its
war
children
does to people.
to annihilate Israel, doesn't pay terrorists. That's what not the Hamas do only. It's what the Palestinian Authority, the other side of the Palestinian people, does. They pay terrorists. The more Jews they kill, the more they pay them, and doesn't launch terrorists. There are several ideas how to do that. But I think that America's help here is indispensable.
yeah, that would be very interesting, because if all of a sudden that becomes U.S. territory, and U.S. now has interest in making sure there's not chaos there, that could actually be very effective for a lot of people in the community. I lived in Iran for 11 years, and maybe this is a transition. I got 3 other topics I'd like to talk to you about. Is when I lived in Iran for 11 years, I was born in 78. The Shah was leading Iran, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. And when you look at the stats from 1941 when he took office to 1979, that 38 years that he was in, not a lot of wars. It was fairly peaceful. You have some numbers on the low end of 17,000 people that died due to war in Iran during that 38 years. High numbers, 50,000. In the Middle East, not as chaotic. Of course, there was issues, but not as much as they have now. Then from 1979, Khomeini comes in, IRGC, which I had the former founder of IRGC here. We had a conversation with him. Khomeini comes in 79. From 79 till today, if you look at the numbers, low end, 600,000 people died in Iran, 2 million people. In the Middle East, 4.5 to 5.5 million people have died. Of course, some of the wars are different places, but still, when you go back to Iran, you have Houthis, you have all these other things that they control. How much do you think of what the Middle East was like pre the Islamic Revolutionary Guard took over? How everybody was able to find a way to get along versus what happened after 79? I know you're a big history person. What is the difference between those two eras?
Well, the big difference is the Islamist revolution that basically took these very gifted people. The Iranian people are enormously gifted. First of all, they have a tremendous historic culture, and you won't be surprised, but maybe your listeners would be surprised that in antiquity, in the time of the great Persian king Cyrus, there was a honeymoon between the Jews and the Persian people. And that relationship actually continued in modest ways, but in significant ways under the Shah. When the Shah went down and these theological thugs took over Iran, they basically said, our goal, that's in their constitution, is to export the Islamic revolution worldwide. And that's what they proceeded to do. So all the
basically they
all
went the
economic resources
globalist
were
route,
now tuned
right?
to war. In the time that
Right, they want
when I was
the
finance minister,
globalization
and,
of
till today,
Islamic culture.
Iran at that time and Israel had roughly the same GDP
Right,
per capita.
versus
Ours went up
versus the
from 17,000
versus
to $60,000
the
per capita.
globalization of
And
the
theirs
West,
stayed
which
flat.
is
Why?
democracy.
Because they took all that money, all
See how
that
that
money
goes?
to arm Hezbollah, arm Hamas, arm the Houthis, and purvey terror around the globe, not only in the Middle East, against the Arabs, against Israel, against everyone else, against Americans. So, what has happened
Basically,
is that
they
Iran
want to
collapsed
become the
economically.
next world power.
They have now infrastructure that is completely destroyed. Their water system is depleted. Their dams are empty. Their rivers are drying up because they don't take care of their people. This is a horrible sect. So I gave, in this room where I was sitting a few days ago, I gave a podcast to the Iranian people, which I do from time to time. And I had a glass of water and, a pitcher of water.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we helped Iran and we're ready to help Iran with its water problems. And when you free yourselves of this tyranny, we'll do it again. Now, Patrick, how many views do you think I got for this podcast?
How many?
It's a video, actually. How many?
How many?
70 million.
From
Now,
Iran?
has about 50 million, we
Wow.
think. So it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half the population. And you can tell that it hit a nerve because all the Iranian leadership proceeded to respond to it and to attack it and so on, which tells you it really got to them. And that's in fact what is happening. This regime is not only tormenting and executing and killing the people of Iran, they subjugate them, but they seek to subjugate the entire world in their mad fantasies, the Muslim world and then everyone else. And of course, we're not Muslims, so we have to be eliminated because we stand in their way of conquering the entire Middle East. So Israel is fighting here not only our war, but the war of our Arab neighbors, the war of the Western countries. They're developing now ballistic missiles that can reach deep into the heart of Europe. Their plan is to develop, the next thing is an ICBM.
Basically, they're trying to create, yes,
ICBMs. Reach
ICBMs.
8,000 kilometers. You add another 3,000 and they can reach New York. Where are you
Or at
broadcasting
least
from,
get
by
the
way?
funding to
Florida,
make
Florida.
ICBMs.
Yeah, they can reach Florida, Fort Lauderdale, New York.
I mean,
Washington,
look,
Boston,
these guys,
and after
right?
that,
If anything,
any other city in the United States.
these guys
And
at
they intend to
the
put
end of it, they
nuclear
want to make a
warheads on
nuke,
these ballistic
right?
missiles.
They
So
want to
this
become
is
the
not-
next world
this is a
power. They
fact.
want
And the main
they want
fact that I
some
want to say is that
leverage.
we're fighting in many
right?
ways the war of the West, the war of Western civilization against these barbarians, and our victory will be your victory. And one more thing, you talked about the Iranian
I
Revolution.
mean, just look
Remember
what
how it
happened to
started?
fucking North
Remember what
Korea,
the first thing
right?
that they did?
when
took
they
over
got their
Tehran?
nukes.
You talking about the toast with Carter, or are you talking about after when they took over?
Well, they took over and then they took the American embassy and held some
Yes,
50 hostages.
my aunt
Remember
was in
that?
the embassy. Absolutely, yes.
So this regime began by taking hostages. And what do their proxies do today? They take our hostages for extortion. They take our hostages. I liberated 205 out of 255. We still have at least 20 alive and about 30 dead, and we intend to get all of them. And that's what we're fighting for now. But it just tells you what the nature of this regime and its proxies is. It's anti-West, anti-America, anti-Western civilization. It's not good to be a Christian. It's very bad to be a Jew in Iran. And it's very bad to be either one of those in any part of Iran's proxies.
Right. I wish we had a couple hours to talk about Iran because I have a lot of interest in
I
that
mean,
topic with you.
yeah,
but I do
I
want to
mean,
get
he
to the
just
last
says it
question
all
I have
day.
with you.
Yeah, I
This is
don't
the one
know. I
challenge
don't know why
personally
people are
have.
getting
My
mad
audience
at
is not
this
gonna be that
podcast.
interested in the story, except for people from my community. You know, the
I-
Holocaust
they
has been recognized by
talked about a lot of
193
stuff.
different
I don't know.
countries, right? Everybody around the world. And in some countries, if you denied, you could do jail time. Many countries. You can do jail
Epstein
time a year or
didn't
5
come
years.
up, but
But
this
for
isn't
anybody
about Epstein. What
that
the
doesn't
fuck?
recognize Armenian, Assyrian genocide,
What?
if there's any country that I would have expected to be on the list that recognized the Armenian and the Assyrian and the Greek genocide, it would be Israel. Why haven't you yet recognized?
Oh,
the
obviously
Armenian,
they're not
Assyrian,
going
and
to
the Greek
talk
genocide
about
that the Turkish,
the civilian killings and
did
the
to the,
right
to that
fucking.
community.
In fact, I think we have, because I think the Knesset passed a resolution to that effect.
I don't know if it's come
want you
from
to-
you, though. I don't know if it's come from the Prime Minister of Israel.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay.
Here you go.
All right. Well, thank you for doing that. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you
that.
for
That's, I appreciate you. That's important to me.
Okay,
and,
maybe
I'm
that's
sure a lot
more
of
why.
Armenians,
Okay,
Assyrians, and Greeks
I
around the
see.
world appreciate
That's
you saying
probably
that.
why more
Prime
people
Minister
are
Netanyahu,
upset.
thank you so
right?
much for your time. I wish we had more time together. Maybe next time it'll be a sit down
This
with a couple
one.
hours, but we don't have to go. I know you have a
That
cabinet
makes
meeting to
more
go to.
sense. Right,
Again, I
12K
appreciate you
likes.
for your time today.
Thank you, Patrick, and I'd love to talk to you again. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. So,
Because
what was
yeah,
your
he
biggest
did
takeaway?
not.
I know
He
we
did
covered a lot
not
of things
ask
he hasn't
anything
spoken
about
before.
right, that stuff.
One, October 7th, would it have happened under Trump? Number two, the money,
But I
the amount
mean,
of money
at
they're
the
spending
same
on the war,
time,
120,
Hamas is
$130
doing the same. Right at the
60%
same
debt to
in the
GDP
same
ratio, now
vein, Hamas is
75%.
killing
Are you
civilians
come back to
too.
America to more money? Three,
Right,
the
so
fact
it's
that
like,
he's
what?
looked at 124 different countries. That if he steps foot on
I don't know.
that land, he's getting arrested. And last but not
When it
least,
comes to
obviously, he
war, it
recognized
seems
for the
like
first time in the
there
history
are people
of
who are like
Israel
super
that he
one-sided on
recognized
it.
the Armenian,
And it's just like, what
Assyrian,
the
Greek
fuck?
genocide.
You know,
Not as
people
a
are.
massacre,
You know, they're
not as a crisis,
killing
but as
each
a
other's
genocide. This is the first
citizenry,
time
right? Because they're
that it's
just
ever
fucking
happened.
launching,
And so whether you like him,
lobbing
hate him, or
missiles
love him,
arbitrarily
whichever one of
all
those
over
three
the
communities
fucking
you're
place,
in,
right?
if you have any questions for me, we have a private circle for PBD podcast on Monect. You can download
That-
the QR
that-
code here and
that's
talk to one
literally
another,
what
agree,
war
disagree.
conflict
If you have any
is. I
questions you want to
don't-
ask me on Monect, I'll be able to address it. Any questions you may have about this interview, I'll address it there as well. Either way, if you enjoyed the interview, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Take care, everybody.
Gaza
Bye-bye.
situation. He did talk about the Gaza situation. He did talk about the Gaza situation. I guess I guess they're talking about a particular certain thing, right? So yeah, as you can see, yeah, not a lot of people like it because he didn't ask certain right. He didn't ask certain questions. But yeah, there you have it. There you have it. He didn't ask certain questions about the civilian killings that were happening and blah blah blah. The mic, this. I mean, in a sense, you're supposed to just allow these people, right? Allow these people, right? All PBD was facilitate him, just giving him like a mouthpiece to talk. He wasn't trying to like antagonize him or anything. I think that's what people want, right? I think that's what people want most. I feel like in interviews, people want that tension. Literally, they want that fight. It's like I don't know. There's no. They're not looking for that. But yeah, I don't know. Because he said he was going on a tour of. Right. But why weren't people mad at. I mean, I think people were mad at the. I mean, probably people were mad at the trigonometry podcast one too, because they didn't ask certain questions. Well, that was before everything came out. But even then, right? Even then, they should have asked certain questions, right? So it's like, I don't know what people want. I feel like people just want people. Right? I feel like they want him, right? These interviewers to right? Try and make Netanyahu angry for some reason. Uh. Also, there seems to be a lot of emotional people. Uh. Yeah, and I feel, man, people keep throwing the fucking word genocide around. It's like, dude, are you, ay, ay. Just a lot of brain dead people. Like, whenever I see those people who throw out that term genocide, it's like, yeah, you sound like one of those Hassan people, right? You sound like one of those retards. Free Palestine. Well, are you gonna tell people to go fucking murder politicians again? Like Hassan does? Anyways, there you have it. PBD podcast. I mean, it was. Look, I don't know. I think the interview was whatever. I mean, sure, he didn't ask, like, fucking, like, he didn't ask for these questions, sure. But I don't. Why don't you ask the Hamas people the same thing? Why are they killing civilians and shit, right? Why are they taking people hostage, right? So, women and children hostages and old people, right? I mean, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? You know, whatever. To each their own. These people are just emotionally captured, right? Anyways, there you have it. That was the PBD podcast. If you want to take a look at his stuff, there it is. Right there, you have it.